everybody, this is Jason with the Fish School. I shot some really cool drone footage recently and I wanted to share it with you. I'm on Lake Altoona here and I'm fishing back in a creek, and I could tell that there was a lot of bait fish in this particular area, and all the bait fish were very, very shallow. And really what they were doing was hanging out in what looks like a mud line, but from the boat's perspective it looked more like just areas of pollen. Where just the wind had blown pollen into certain spots. And I believe they were herring. Don't quote me on that. I didn't catch any of the bait fish this particular day, but this was late afternoon. And generally, anytime I see some sort of shad spawn, it's very, very early in the morning or even overnight. These bait fish were clearly spawning in these little areas of pollen. But again, this is very late in the afternoon, and it just did not seem like shad to me. So I believe it was herring, but I can't confirm that. But regardless, there was a lot of bait fish here, and I could see them flickering. And about every 5 to 10 minutes, like a wolf pack or a school of bass would come up and just start gorging themselves right along the bank, to the point where some of these bait fish were getting pushed out of the water and onto the bank. It was really intense. It was really awesome, and it was a great opportunity for me to shoot some drone footage of some topwater action. So just really cool, and I wanted to share that. I'm going to go ahead and play this, and what we'll do is just kind of watch some of the things that happen over the course of this video. Keep in mind, I don't know all that's going on. I can't see everything from the boat's perspective, but when I look back with the drone, you can see a lot of cool stuff. You see a big bass, probably a big largemouth right here, swimming up in the shallows, and all this gray up here, it looks like it might just be kind of a hole in the pollen or the mud, but it's actually bait fish. And then you see right behind that big largemouth a group of spotted bass come in, just start blowing them out of the water. And this is what would happen every 5 or 10 minutes. And it was interesting to see the actual schools come in and watch the bait fish react. And then you can see me obviously trying to cast where I think they'll be, and I do catch some, but really these, you can see 1, 2, 3, at least 3 spotted bass here. It's just really interesting how they'll come in, start busting on this bait, and then they'll stop for a couple minutes or a few seconds, but they'll still be right there. So it was just very cool to observe, like, hey, once they stop blowing up in this bait, they may not have actually gone somewhere else. And I catch a little one here, part of that group of bass that came in, started eating these bait fish. This was just a little guy. The average fish this day was really, really good. So for whatever reason, they seem to hang out in schools of similar size. That was maybe one of the smallest bass I caught this day. The rest of them averaged, I would say, about 2 1/4 to 3 1/4 pounds. Somewhere in there is really, really good quality. And I caught all of them on a Super Spook Jr, which was just super, super fun. All right, we're going to move forward in action just a little bit here. And this is really just a couple minutes after that fish catch that you just saw. And, the bite kind of died for a little bit. I knew the bait fish were still there. I could still see them flickering. And then this is what would happen. And this is what I saw originally. If you watch over to the left side of your screen, you'll see a massive school come up and start blowing up on these bait balls. This was, what I saw when I first drove by this spot. You see me turn the drone, try to get reoriented. It was not just 2 or 3 spotted bass. Like, they were big, groups of spotted bass that were coming through and pushing these bait fish, further up into the bank and just kind of going crazy. You see me get a quick professional overrun, as I'll call it. And, there's bait all down this bank. There's bait that you can't see from the drone that's kind of inside this pollen and near these laydowns. You still see this group of bait, this kind of gray-black shading here. And, the bass were just swimming up and down the bank in these groups, seemingly just rushing up to eat these bait fish whenever they wanted. And you can actually see one over here rushing up, getting some of these bait fish over here, and I'm still focused on what just happened over here. So it was very interesting to go back to watch the footage and see, here's a big group. This is a big wolf pack of spotted bass. I can't tell you how many are in here, maybe 10 to 15, I would guess. And this is likely the group that just started, blowing up over here. And I'm still focused over here, yet that school just swimming down the bank. And for whatever reason, for the most part, they didn't blow up on this group over here. They just kind of, checked them out for a minute and moved on. Here you actually see what looks like some massive bass. These are actually gar, and I believe these gar are spawning. You'll see them kind of come up and breach the water briefly. And you notice they have really no interest in the shad. They're just kind of swimming down the bank. There was a lot of gar in this area on that day. You see them come up, and those were gar. You see the bait fish still here, kind of swimming around, just feeling a little bit nervous, but not really going anywhere. And here's even more bait fish. I'm finally hook up in this area, so there was still clearly some bass around, but the reality was there was just a lot of fish in this area. And then we would have these schools that would come in and really be aggressive for a little bit of time. Let's keep watching here. We're going to see what you can make out here. It looks like a handful of these are bigger bass. I believe there's a largemouth. They're staying out just a little bit deeper. Here's another really good one. That's a really big fish. It's a really big bass. Kind of comes in, checks out the bait, but for whatever reason just decides not to eat. I mean, they're opportunistic, and for whatever reason, just didn't want to take a bite out of any of these bait fish. But there was plenty of bait fish along this entire stretch all day. So maybe they just did not feel the need that they had to eat every single time they saw a bait fish, because it really was full of bait for sure. See a big blow up on the Super Spook right here. It was a lot of fun catching them on topwater this day. It just felt like if I kept at it, I just would keep getting bites, and here's some more bass swimming back the other way now. So we've seen them go down the bank and either turn around, or a different group just go in the opposite direction. So it was just a great place to hang out. And I stayed here probably for a couple hours and caught fish, throughout that entire time. There's just a lot of fish here. And even though the action wasn't like every single cast, even though they weren't blowing up nonstop, it was enough to where if I just stayed there and hung out and kind of stayed, within this maybe 80-yard stretch, they'd come back up. It'd be fast and furious. I'd catch some really good fish, and then it would kind of settle down a little bit. Maybe I'd have to get repositioned, but there was definitely a lot going on in this area this day. Another really big blow up here. They were not hitting this topwater bait gently. It was just really explosive bites, which just made it so much fun. Everyone was getting hooked really, really good. I don't think that I had any come off this day. See these bait fish kind of moving around a bit. I don't see a bass at the moment, but there may be some more bass swimming around. Just had a boat drive by. You can tell by these boat wakes, and I believe this was probably a 3-pound class fish. It's hard to tell from the drone, but this was a really nice fish, probably one of the better ones of the afternoon. See some more baitfish over here kind of flickering. Hold it up for the camera. Put it in live well to take a good photo later. Still casting at the same, general area. I'm not, seeing any active blow ups. It just seemed like they were kind of, in this area. The wind was good. It was a good amount of wind to where I felt like I was a little bit concealed. I really do like to fish in the wind. I hope the wind isn't just unbearable. But if it's really slick, calm, those bass are really observant. The water is relatively clear. There's a lot of pollen and kind of debris in the water, but the water wasn't very muddy this particular day. And if it's calm, they can see you. They can hear you making noise. They can hear the sonar pings, and they can see your boat. So this was a good amount of wind, to where I just felt like I was concealed a little bit, and that Super Spook Jr. was loud enough rattle to where it was just kind of calling them to the bait. It was just kind of perfect conditions to throw this topwater and keep at it. And if they were, I'd say, within 30 or 40 feet, they seemed like they would come over and crush this topwater bait. I appreciate you guys watching this video. If you find this content interesting, certainly let me know, and I can consider doing more of this. I plan to pull together the full YouTube video of this day, utilizing this drone footage and my standard Osmo Action 5 action camera, but wanted to get this drone footage out first. So hopefully you enjoy it. If you got any questions, please let me know. If you want to see more of this, let me know in the comments. And as always, please like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you soon.